Okay, I'm only going to get you started on this one, all right? Most of this is going to be something that I want you to practice and show me that you can work through these problems. These are problem solving. You can do it. I know you can. But I will get you started. So unattached earlobes is an autosomal dominant trait. That's important information. So I'm going to highlight that. So what do we know about autosomal dominant? Autosomal dominant tells us that males and females are going to inherit it the same way. On the right, write the genotype for each individual in the family. Use big E for the unattached earlobe allele and little e for the attached earlobe allele. How likely is it that II3 and II4's next child will have unattached earlobes? You'll have to answer that question. Okay, remember the key tells us that the boxes are filled in. That means that they have unattached earlobes. And unattached is the dominant trait. So that means you only need one copy of big E in order to demonstrate the trait, which means you need two copies of little e to not have the trait. So that says that we can just go through and anyone who's not filled in does not have the trait. So they have to have the recessive genotype. Okay, so anyone who has unattached earlobes they could be big E, or they could be big E, little e. Now, some of these we'll be able to figure out. Some of these we might not. So let's take I1 for example. He has unattached earlobes, but he has a child who does not. So this child right here had to inherit a little e from him. So that means he has to have at least one little e to pass on. But he has to have at least one big E in order to have unattached earlobes. Okay, so remember, you're going to move all of this information over to the side. You need to put all of the information over there. Okay, now individual I2 had to pass on a little e to all of her children. And the other two children are affected. So that means they had to get the dominant allele from their father. So they have to be big E, little e. Okay, now let's look at the female at I4. She is affected, so that means she has to have a big E. Now, she has one child that is affected, and she has two children that are unaffected. If she has children that are unaffected, they have to be little e, little e. The only way for them to be little e is for her to pass on a little e. So she has to have a little e that she can pass on. Okay, the individual at II4 is affected with unattached earlobes. So they have to have one of the dominant alleles. But their father only has little e's, so they have to have one little e. Okay, so now we're looking at the third generation, generation III. We know that individuals 3 and 4 in that generation have to be little e because they're not affected. But individuals 1, 2, and 5, well, do we have enough information to know for sure what their genotype is? Let's look at their two parents. Both of their parents are homozygous. No, both of their parents are heterozygous. I apologize for that. But their parents are heterozygous, meaning they each have one big E and one little e. And because of that, there's a 50-50 chance that the father could pass on the big E or the little e. There's also a 50-50 chance that the mother could pass on big E or little e. We know that all 3 of these affected individuals has to have at least one big E, but that's all we know. We don't know if they have one big E or if they have more than one big E. So you need to rewrite all this information over in the column on the right, and you need to answer the question that was asked. So how likely is it that their next child will have unattached earlobes? Hint, hint, you may want to do a Punnett square. I need a percentage there. Okay, and then I want you to try number 2 on your own.